Hello, everybody. My name is Waris. I'm here to talk about how to create ec2 instances using Terraform code with AWS. Now, if you are new here, if you don't really know anything about Terraform, I will urge you to go to Google, type Terraform, and Google will give you the sites. You can learn what is Terraform, what is used for, and all of that. So if you already know a little things about Terraform, I want you to stay. So let's create ec2 instances using Terraform code. Now let's jump right into it. The first question you might ask is, what is ec2? What is it used for? What do we need ec2 for? ec2 is basically called Elastic Compute Cloud. Actually, it is ECC, but we name it ec2 because the C is 2. So Elastic Compute Cloud. Elastic Compute Cloud. It is called Elastic Compute Cloud. And it is a web server that is provided by AWS that offers scalable computing resources in the cloud. It allows users to rent virtual servers known as instances. That's why it is called ec2 instance. ec2 instances, because virtual servers are known as what? As instances. So it allows users to rent virtual servers known as instances on which they can run various applications and services. So we already know what ec2 is. If you look at my screen here, you see ec2, all these things. If you don't have a AWS account, I will urge you to go to AWS and create an account so we can move on together. So if you create an account, this is all you see ec2, you see all these things here, IAM, Rotate, SS3, CloudFront, Dynamo, Amazon, you see all this there. Just click on the ec2 because in this course you are creating ec2 instances. Now, you ask me what we are in AWS, this thing, where are we going to create the Terraform code? We'll get, as you go along, you will get where we can create our Terraform code. Now you see my ec2 down, you see my instances here. If I click on my instances, I think nothing is running at this moment. Nothing is my instances type and this thing. These are all the things I need. I need my instances, my AMI, network, all these things. These are things I need to create my ec2 on AWS. But we want to create it using Terraform code. Now, you might ask, what do I need? What are things I need to create? What I need to use to put my Terraform code? What are the things I need to put my Terraform code to create my ec2? That's a good question. First of all, let me give you some basic things you need to create your Terraform code. You need your region, which is very important. Your region, if you look at this site on my screen, you will see the region I'm using. I'm using US East 1. There are many regions, and the reason why regions are very important is each region here contains different availability zone, and each availability zone contains different instances. So if you choose a region, you are likely going to use all the instances in that region. Now I'm using US East 1. US East 1, as I'm using US East 1, AWS will automatically give me the instances in that region that I can use to create my ec2. So regions are very important in creating your ec2. Instances type. Your instances type, like I said, your region, you are going to AWS will give you the instances in that region. So instances is important. Your AMI is very important because your AMI is a pre-configured template. It's a template that contains the necessary information to launch your instances in Amazon Web Service Cloud, in AWS Cloud. Your AMI is a template, a pre-configured template that contains the necessary information to launch your instances into AWS Cloud. Your AMI is very important. So you need your AMI, you need your subnet, which is very important. You need your NACO, which is your network access control list. Access control list, that's your NACO. And you need your SSH, that's security shell. So let's go on to the Terraform. Let's start creating our Terraform. Now, we are familiar with Visual Studio Code. I think most of us, I will assume I think you guys forgive me. I will assume that we are all familiar with Visual Studio Code. Now, your Visual Studio Code, you might be like, you might ask a question, how do I create my Terraform code in my Visual Studio Code and connect it to my AWS so that as I am creating my ec2 instance using Terraform code on my Visual Studio Code, it has to show and start running in my AWS. But AWS and Visual Studio Code are not connected. How can I connect together? Very good. You need to connect your Visual Studio Code to your AWS using your access key and secret access key. Let me teach you. If you go to your terminal, you press new terminal. New terminal. So I bring your new terminal. So this is your new terminal. You press AWS configure because you are trying to connect your VS Code to your AWS. So you have to configure your AWS in your VS Code configure. You see, it will ask you for your AWS access key ID. If you input your AWS access key, because you find the AWS access key in your AWS as you are creating your account in AWS, you find your AWS access key and you find your AWS secret access key. So it will be able to connect your VS Code to your AWS. Then after you put your secret access key, you put your region you are using. You can see the region is very important when creating an ec2. It's even important in AWS because your region is going to indicate the type of instances you are going to be running, the type of virtual server you're going to be using. So your region is very important, and you put your output format, which is JSON. This one is default output format. So I'm going to skip this side, guys, because I want to input my access key. I don't want some scammer to know. So I'm going to skip this side. So I've input my access key and my secret access key. I can see at the left hand here, it said connected. I'm already connected to the AWS profile. So it can go on. Let's go back to our code. Now, if you check, I've already created a folder in my VS Code. It is called Terraform 1. Under the folder, I created a file called variable.file. And this variable, why do we need variable.file? You will ask me, what do I need variable.file for? Good question. Now, variable.file are placeholder for value. They hold the value that can be used throughout the Terraform code. All the things you need to use throughout your Terraform code, variable.files hold them. So when you start inputting your code inside this variable.of, the code will be reused in any of the file you created. So you don't need to start typing what is inside the variable. All you need to do is to just be connecting them to the variable. So any information that any file needs, it will automatically take it from the variable.file. Let's go on. Now, what are the things I told we need in our variable file? We need our region, which is very important because our region will indicate the type of instances we need to use. And how do we input our region? Good. Just a variable. Now, what do we which region are we using? We are using AWS region. So you type AWS underscore region. Then you go back. What's the default region where you are using? Default region. My default region, I'll go back to my AWS. So I'll go back to my AWS. I am in my AWS account. I'll go to my region. Which region am I using? I'm using the US is 1. I go back. US is 1. Put my double column US East 1. That's my region. That's my variable for the region. What do I need? Our instances. I need my instances variable. What's the instances type? Instance underscore type. The type of instances I'm using, because each region has its own instance, and the instance are in this region, in this US region, instances are many. Let me show you. If you go back to now I'm back to my AWS account, my instances type, you can see there are a lot of instances here. Another instance, all these instances that we have T1 micro, T2 nano, T2 small, T2 medium, T2 large, T2 large. All these are the instances I need that are in that region, but I just need only one. So let me just pick T2 micro, because at least, the memory is big. It has many memory gig. That's network performance low to moderate, and the money they demanded per hour on window, on Linux, on window pricing. There's the money they demand on window. So I'm going to use T2 micro. So I go back to my AWS. I'm using T2 micro. My default instance I'm using is what? T2 micro. I put a T2.micro, because here it's called T2. I'm using T2.micro. So what are the things I need? Again, I need my AMI. Very good. AMI is very important in creating ec2 instance, because like I said, AMI are configured templates that contain the necessary information to launch the instances. Our AMI is very important. So I go again, variable. You can see we're just using variable, then put the name. That's AMI ID. AMI underscore ID. We're using our AMI ID, and our default AMI ID we'll go back to our AWS account. Now we are back to our AWS account. Now, if you go under the ec2 dashboard, you will see AM catalog. These are the AMI available in this region. These are the AMI available that I can use. But because of we are learning together, let's use this free tier eligible. We can use this AMI Amazon Linux AMI. There are two ID, 64-bit. So let's use this. You can copy this for those who don't like typing, or you can type it in your VS Code account. You can just copy it, Ctrl+C, or copy. Now you go back to your VS Code. Put it there. That's your default AMI. That's the information that's the information used to launch your instances in AWS Cloud. Now we provided our AMI. Now the last one we need is the public IP. Now, public IP. What's public IP? It's a Boolean value indicating whether or not instances will be launched, will have a public IP address. Does your instances have an exchange? Just like a website, a website always have a IP address, and all these IP addresses are not the one you see www.google.com or this thing. They are numbers, but those www.google, they are just one, like the one we can see, but they have their own IP address. So you want to create an ec2 instance, it must have its own IP address, and this one we are saying yes, it should have IP address. So we have to default it to true. Let's go on variable. Our public, our IP, public underscore IP. We set our default. Default to what? True. True. Now you can say I'm not putting